principles should we take into consideration when we divide revenues? Okay? What principles? And I want you to explain to me how then do we take into consideration these principles, applying it to our own counties.
I think the cartoon talked about capacity.
Capacity, all right. Those counties or wards that have more capacity should be given less. Do we all agree? Anyone with a contrary opinion? Great. Okay, what other principle do you think we should use in division of revenue? Yes, please, Paul. Needs. Okay. Tell me more.
So find that every county has its own needs, and we need to prioritize so that we can cater for them. That's how I interpret that.
Great. So more needs, more revenue. Okay. We can look at need in terms of direct parameters like population, more people, more money. Okay. Or we could look at it in terms of services. So more sick people, more money for health. Okay. Now, what's the third principle that you saw?
The fiscal responsibility.
Fiscal responsibility. Okay.
Yeah, we saw in that cartoon.
Okay.
Some were producing more.
Okay.
And at some point, they were not getting as much as
they used to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and those who were producing less were being given more revenue.
All right. So what he's talking about is effort. Okay. So we want to consider your effort, and we want to reward someone who is putting more effort. All right. More effort, more revenues. Some people have argued that you need to give people a basic minimum. Okay. So this usually are for the administrative costs that run through all counties. Okay, so efficiency is something else that people have said, where can we get the most return using the resources we have? Something else is, we could consider is fairness. Let's call it fair process. Does anyone know how CRA has recommended to divide revenues across our country?
One of the parameters is poverty.
What about poverty?
Poverty
index.
Okay. What other parameter, Murgo?
Population.
Population?
That is the first one is population.
Someone else? Sorry, who said that? All right, equal share. Development factor, Anyone else who has another one in mind? Sorry, Kibet? Land area, all right. Kerosi said that there's development factor. I want to say that is in the new CRA formula that has recently been approved by the Senate, okay? So the first formula that was approved by the National Assembly, because then there was no Senate, was the one that took into consideration all those things you've said. And then this year, now we have a new parameter known as development factor, okay? At population, we calculate how many people are in a county over the total population, and then we divide 45 of the total share to the different counties. For basic equal share, obviously, it's just divide by 47, the 25% of how much we have to share to the counties. Poverty, we take into consideration the poverty gap, and this is how far below counties are from the poverty line, whether rural or urban poverty line. And then land area is the total land area of Kenya, and the land area of the county divided by the land area of Kenya. That's how you divide the 8%. And then there's fiscal responsibility. For fiscal responsibility over the past years, we have been dividing equally because we didn't have counties before. It was difficult to do that comparison, and they hadn't really gave a now the formula or what parameter to take into consideration. Okay, so basically we had a basic equal share of 27 as opposed to 25. Okay. So now we have a new formula which was just passed in March this year. So we're going to call it the CRA 2016 formula. And the only new parameter that has been added is development factor. Okay. The percentages have also changed. For basic equal share, it's now 26. For poverty, it's been reduced to 18. For land area, it remains 8. And then for fiscal responsibility, it's 2. And development factor is 1. The development factor is just an additional way of measuring poverty. So it's just like an additional way of assessing needs. All right. And then for fiscal responsibility, now we have a way of determining that. And what we're looking at is the difference in revenue collected by counties 2013-14 and 2014-15. What is the difference in the revenue that they're collecting?
I think it's important that we recognize that the first formula was based heavily on a combination of international examples, because Kenya is not the only country that shares revenue. Secondly, they did do the things that Mokera says. They went around and they got views. They had experts from different institutions come, etc. They did simulations. So there's a lot that went into it, whether we agree with it or we disagree with it. There is no answer to exactly how you weight different things. So everywhere in the world, when you do something like this, you first look at what you think is important, like we did before in that exercise and we are going to do again. And then you try to kind of look at what the result is. On the issue of the shift from poverty to development, there's a lot that can be said about it. We can spend a whole day discussing that. But one of the things which I think is important to understand, again, whatever you may think about it, is that many of us do not believe that poverty is a very good measure. The money that we are talking about sharing is money that is supposed to go to the functions that we discussed on the first day, right? Counties receive money from the equitable share to deliver functions, to deliver services. So one of the questions you have to ask is, what is the best way to allocate resources to increase welfare? Is it to use a measure of poverty, which is not related to any specific service that is being provided, or is it better to use a measure that actually looks at the services that people are going to provide? Over time, we should shift away from a poverty measure and towards more direct measures of service access. You can be poor and have access to roads, and you can be rich and have access to roads, or the reverse. But since what we are actually spending the money on is roads, the development parameter, by trying to look at access to roads as a measure, is a more direct measure of what we are talking about. So we would be asking ourselves, which parts of the country have fewer roads? Then the money that we are giving, since it is to build roads, more of it should go to those places, regardless of whether the people there are poor or not poor, whether they are a little bit richer than in some other place, because poverty is an indirect measure of what we are trying to get at, whereas access to services is a more direct measure. And that is the same argument you can have about population. Population is a proxy, meaning it is a way of estimating the need for services, like the need for health services, for example. But we know that the need for health services, definitely if you have 1,000 people or you have 500 people, it is likely that you will need more health services in a population with 1,000 people. But it doesn't tell you how sick they are, right? It is still possible that your 1,000 people are less sick than your 500 people, and therefore you wouldn't just double the amount of health care that you need in for 1,000 people, because that's not really measuring the need for health. It is just population. So population is a good estimator, but it's not perfect.
Health 30%,
Okay, health.
agriculture 5%,
5%.
revenue
Yes.
2%,
2%.
housing
Housing.
50%,
50%.
education
Okay.
10%,
10%.
and infrastructure 3%.
3%. There are some groups that had a problem understanding share of facility attendance and proportion of health facility attendance to the population.
The driver of cost is the number of people who use the service, okay? It is not the percentage of people that use the service, the number of people. Therefore, because what drives cost are numbers going to clinics, they have the highest need for the money for health. That's it.